By now you should know all about wide, medium, and tight shots and how you can edit these together into sequences. You've also learned about the rule of thirds, eyes on third, and talking space. Now we're going to share with you the top 10 things that will help take your footage to the next level. Here we go. Number 1, wear headphones. Sound is half of your video. If you have bad sound, you have a bad video. The only way to know for sure that you're getting good sound is to wear headphones. This is especially true when shooting interviews. So whenever possible, use an external mic, but always wear headphones. That way you can make adjustments right then and there. Number 2, use a tripod. Video exaggerates your hand movement. Small movements might not look so bad on your viewfinder because the screen's so small. But when your footage is blown up to a television or a computer, the movement becomes very noticeable. You can avoid this by using a tripod. This footage of ducks was shot handheld, without a tripod. It's all shaky. It's distracting. But here's the same shot from a tripod. You can actually notice what's going on in the shot instead of focusing on all the shakiness. Here they are side by side. Which of these pieces of footage would you rather be dealing with in the edit bay? Number 3, focus manually. Professionals use manual focus. While automatic focus will work on some things, you get a lot more control over your image when you use manual focus. To focus manually, your camera has to have a manual focus setting. It's usually a focus ring. A lot of the time there's a switch that changes between automatic and manual focus. Make sure this is set to manual. You then zoom in on the area that you want to be in focus. Adjust the focus to this area, and then zoom back out. Frame up your shot. As long as you or your subject doesn't move forwards or backwards, the shot will stay in focus. Here's 2 ways that automatic focus can ruin your shot. Automatic focus can cause your camera to focus on the wrong thing. Notice the person being interviewed is out of focus, and instead it's the flowers in the background. That's the part the camera thinks should be in focus. The way to overwrite this is to use the manual setting. Go in, zoom in on them, and focus. That'll prevent back focusing. Here's the second way that automatic focus can ruin your shot. You might not have caught that. Let's watch it again. We'll freeze it here. See that the focus has shifted unexpectedly. The camera is set to automatic focus, and when people walk by in the background, the camera shifts its focus back there because it thinks it should be focusing on that. Again, this could be avoided by using manual focus. Number 4, avoid backlighting. Look at how dark our subject is. You can hardly see the person. This is because the light source is directly behind them. To avoid backlighting, have your subject move around, or you can move around them, so that the light is hitting them instead of backlighting them. The same is true indoors with windows. Simply move your camera or move the subject so that the light isn't directly behind them. The good rule of thumb here is put the light behind the camera, not behind the subject. Number 5, white balance. When you set the white balance in a camera, you're telling it which color is white. And when it knows which color is white, it can figure out all the other colors. It can represent them accurately. Maybe you've seen indoor footage that is too orange, or outdoor footage that's too blue. Both are really unflattering, especially to skin tones. To white balance most cameras manually, you zoom in on a white object, like a piece of paper, and hold down on the white balance button. Usually looks like this. This tells the camera that the piece of paper is white. Now, when you zoom back out, it can accurately represent all the other colors. Here's the before and after. As you can see, the properly white balanced footage is much more flattering and more true to life. Some cameras have these preset settings depending on where you're shooting. Usually looks like a sunshine or a light bulb or maybe clouds. Those usually work fine, but if you're not sure and your camera has the function, you should just do a manual white balance. Get in the habit of that. Number 6, shoot pre-roll and post-roll. When you're shooting, you want to keep in mind the length of each shot. You basically want to make sure that each shot is long enough that you can edit later. A lot of amateurs make the mistake of pressing record too late and then pressing stop too early. This can cut your shots a little too short, leaving you little to edit. To avoid this, press record and then count to 10 in your head. If you're shooting an interview, make sure you start recording a little bit early. That way you don't cut off the first part of your interview and risk missing a soundbite. Number 7, no in-camera effects. Never in any situation should you use in-camera effects like these. You can always add these later with your editing software if you want, but if you add them in camera, you're stuck with them. You're better off just leaving that alone. Number 8, pick up sticks. By sticks, we mean your tripod. Pick up your tripod and move it around. When you're shooting sequences, don't just pan and zoom around looking for your next shot. Sometimes you'll need to physically pick up your tripod and move it around, get different angles and perspectives. Sometimes picking up the camera and moving it closer is much better than a zoom button. Just remember the shot of the glove. We couldn't get this same detail by just zooming in. We actually had to move the camera closer. Number 9, stop recording your shot adjusts. Try to avoid panning, tilting, or shot adjusting while recording your B-roll. If you're going to use the audio, by all means keep rolling, but otherwise set up your shot, get happy with it, press record, and then take your hands off the camera and count to 10. You'll be tempted to keep trying to perfect your shot. Make a little adjustment here or there, but that will ruin it altogether. Get in the habit of not recording your shot adjusts. Number 10, don't cross the axis. The first thing to remember is that you control the viewer's perspective by where you put the camera. When you have the camera on this side of these two guys playing catch, the guy in the blue shirt looks like he's on the left, and the guy in the black shirt looks like he's on the right. But what happens when you move the camera to the other side? This makes it appear that the two guys switched places, when in reality, we just moved the camera. So keep your control over the perspective in mind. What do we mean by don't cross the axis? Well, let's say you want to shoot a sequence of these two guys playing catch. We first need to draw an imaginary line across from where we're standing. This is the axis. It's also called the 180-degree line. For a sequence to make sense from the viewer's perspective, all we have to do is keep on one side of this axis while we're shooting. The camera can go here, it can go here, it can go here, it can go anywhere on this side of the line. The rule says that we can't take shots from this side of the line and mix them with shots from that side of the line in the same sequence. Here's a good example of a sequence where we don't cross the axis. We've got a wide shot, and then we've got these medium shots of these guys playing catch. The guy in the blue shirt stays on the left, the guy in the black shirt stays on the right. Easy enough. All of that was shot from this side of the axis. Here's what happens when you cross the axis and mix in a shot from the other side. Watch closely. The guy in the blue shirt appears to have just magically switched sides. Let's watch that again. He was on the left side, and now all of a sudden he jumps to the right side because this shot was from the other side of the axis. The viewer will lose perspective and the sequence becomes confusing and hard to watch. The simple rule here is that if you're shooting a sequence, draw an imaginary line and stay on one side of it. Just pick a side and stay on it. Shoot from that one perspective for the entire sequence. Here's another example. Let's take a look at this two-person interview. Even though these two people are in different shots, they appear to be talking to each other. One is facing the left, and one is facing the right. They appear to be talking. Let's take a step back and see how those cameras are set up. Notice there's a line of axis here as well. Both cameras are on this one side of the line, so the interview makes sense. Now let's move one of the cameras across the axis. We'll show you a bad example. Watch how confusing this looks. While both people are looking at each other in reality, when we watch the video, it doesn't look like they are. They're both looking off the same direction. Again, all you have to do is keep the cameras on one side of the axis. So let's recap those 10 things that every shooter should know. Wear headphones. Use a tripod. Focus manually. Avoid backlighting, white balance, shoot some pre-roll and post-roll, don't use in-camera effects, pick up sticks and move around a little, stop recording your shot adjust, take your hands off the camera, and don't cross the axis. All right, that's it. That's the shooting fundamentals. Those are the things you need to know if you're just starting out. On behalf of the Academy of Scholastic Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Goodwin. Thanks for watching. Chapter 5 quiz. We're going to look at 10 pieces of video, and you're going to critique them and say what's wrong with them. Here we go. Number 1. What's wrong with this shot? This shot is back-focused. Notice the flowers are perfectly crisp in the background, and the subject is a little soft. The way to fix this is to use manual focus. Zoom in on your subject, focus, and then zoom back out. Number 2, what's wrong with this shot? This shot's a little too blue, which means the white balance is probably off. We should do a manual white balance by zooming in on something white, holding down on the white balance button, and then pulling back out. Tell me what's wrong with this picture. Our shooter is not wearing headphones, so he has no idea what sound is coming through the camera. This is a big mistake. Remember to always wear your headphones. Number 4, what would make this shot better? This shot would look a lot better if it was shot from a tripod. Number 5, can you identify the mistake in this footage? The shooter left the date and time on the camera when he was recording, and now there's no way to get it off. Remember, no in-camera effects. This includes titling or the date in the bottom right corner. Number 6, describe what's wrong with this sequence. In this case, the shooter crossed the axis. The guy in the blue shirt jumps around. First he's on the left, and then he's on the right. This happened because the shooter crossed the axis. What's wrong with this shot? This person is making way too many shot adjusts. They should just take their hands off the camera, press record, and count to 10. Number 8, what's wrong with this shot? This person is backlit because they're standing right in front of a window. You should move them or move around them so that the light is hitting them instead of backlighting them. Number 9, how do you make sure you have enough footage of each shot whenever you're in the edit bay? The best way to do this is press record a few seconds before you think you have to, and then keep rolling a few seconds later than you think you have to. True or false? It is almost always better to pick up your camera and move it forward than it is to just zoom in on your subject. This is true. It's almost always better to physically pick up your camera and move it closer. It gets a lot of details that you can't get just by zooming in.